Welcome back, everyone, to Fragomen FC Passport to North America 2026, the Global Football and Immigration Podcast. This episode, we are heading south to South America, where qualifying is long, relentless, away trips are never simple, and Brazil sits at the epicenter of the region's football economy. CONMEBOL already has their qualifying nations up to 6. And today we are welcoming our colleague, Gustavo Kanashiro, a partner in our Sao Paulo office. Gustavo, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Jake, Sergio. It's a great pleasure to be here with you guys. I really like the concept of Fragomen FC, not only because you talk about football, but you talk about football and mobility. And these are subjects that are deeply connected for me. So both passions that I have, and I really enjoy talking about them. So thanks a lot for inviting me.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely, Gustavo. Yeah, we're so excited to have you here. So here's the setup for listeners today. We're going to focus on Brazil and the broader South American picture. Then we're going to shift to real-world mobility, what trips clubs up when traveling, what planning looks like when it's done right, and then we're going to finish with our quick hits and predictions.
Precisely, Jake. It's going to be a real great episode. Thank you very much, Gustavo, for being here. It's a pleasure. And going a little bit into the topic. So, for anyone, Gustavo, who has not crossed paths with you yet, what does your day-to-day leadership work at Fragomen involve? Which South American markets have been the most active for you lately? And from your perspective, what has shifted most in the recent years regarding mobility into and around, of course, South America, especially for players and high performance staff?
Sergio, my role is as a partner in Brazil. I'm very much focused on service delivery, quality, continuous improvement. So at the end of the day, I can say that my job is pretty simple. I just need to make sure that everything we promise is delivered and every desire the client has with Fragomen actually happens. So it's easy to explain, but difficult to put in practice because it depends on several different processes, people, relationships. So basically, this is my day to day activity here in Brazil. We've been spending a lot of time looking at our processes, tweaking things here and there. Always trying to give clients a bit more of they expect. So um, these never really stops because client experience is built through a lot of small ongoing change. So this is this is basically my day to day at Fragomen. From a market perspective, as I said, I'm a partner with the Brazil office. So when you look at immigration in Brazil, Brazil is actually very open to receiving talents from all over the world. That includes um, processes for athletes and sports people. We have specific visa categories here, especially in the region. You were talking about South America, right? So we do have specific visas around the region to help people to go in and out. The Mercosur visa, for instance, um, and basically this is something that helps the mobility within the region. Brazil right now is, I would say, on the spot because we, compared to the other countries in the region, Brazil is being attractive for regional players. So we are in a stronger position to have the stars in the region playing in Brazil. So we have players from all over the countries, Uruguay, Argentina. So it's interesting. It's an interesting moment for the Brazilian to watch football and to see what's going next in the World Cup.
Of course, Gustavo, and thank you very much. It really does sound easy, but keeping everyone happy never easy. So I know it's a tough job. And now shifting a little bit more on the football and personal side, Gustavo, can you give us your football origin story? What's your favorite moment connected to both your Brazilian club, we understand from you it's Corinthians, and of course to the Scratch do Ouro?
Oh my God. Football was always present at home. My father was born in Santos in the 30s. So he literally lived through Pele's entire career. I grew up listening to his stories about, the legendary teams in the 60s and 70s, the Maracanazo in the 50s, the World Cups in 58, like 62, 70. So watching matches with him and talking about football was part of our, interaction every weekend. I also have some painful memories. Remember World Cup in 82 and 86. 86 more because I was 9. I remember France with Platini. Uh, that hit harder. But that national team was great with Sócrates, Zico, Falcão, Cerezo, Júnior, Miller, Careca. But it didn't happen. Uh, from the stories I have, and I recall going to the stadium from the very first time to watch the national team. That was in '89. I was 12. It was Brazil against Venezuela. We won 6-0 for the qualifiers for Italy in 1990, and the stadium was packed, like 106,000 people in a stadium that today can only hold around 65,000. So it
Oh my God.
was it was insane, insane. But for sadness of my father, I didn't become Santos supporter, as you said. I'm Corinthians fan, influenced by family and other friends. And Corinthians has a very very strong part of my heart, and I thank God I passed that to my son as well. So we are all Corinthians fans in Brazil. And for the club, I have three very good memories. One was being in the stadium to watch Corinthians against Chelsea in Japan for the club World Cup final, and Corinthians and Vasco also in the stadium, and Corinthians and Boca Juniors in 2012 winning the Libertadores. So good times, good times.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So let's talk about CONMEBOL qualifying. It's one table, really tough travel, long qualifying process, longest in the world. Every opponent can punish you depending on where you play. CONMEBOL already has 6 teams in. Brazil, Argentina, Ecuador, Colombia, Uruguay, and Paraguay. Bolivia is in a playoff. They're going to play Suriname, and if they win that, they'll play Iraq. Um, with all these spots, and now this is more than what CONMEBOL normally gets with an expanded 48-team tournament. So with that expansion, has anything changed for the federation or squads in the region or anything like that?
Rick, when you talk about the qualifiers in South America, I think everyone agrees one thing: it's probably one of the most demanding qualifying processes in world football. You have a single table, as you said, 10 teams, 18 matches. You play everyone home and away. There is no hiding. On top of that, you are dealing with extreme travel distances, altitude in places like La Paz, Quito, different climates, hostile stadiums, very little recovery time for players who are almost mostly coming from Europe. And that's why the key phrase here is what you said: any opponent can punish you, right? Even the traditional giants have lost points away from home and even playing at home too. So in South America, there is no easy match, especially on the road. Um, the format of the qualifying is also not the best one. This is not only for Brazil, I know, but this is something we have to take into consideration. The windows are not South American problems only. Every national team in the world deals with them. coaches everywhere complain about the same things, like player arriving late, limited training time, very little continuity. But the issue here in South America is that you're not just managing this short preparation time, you're combining that, as we mentioned before, the travels, altitude, etc., every single winter. So yes, everyone gets 2 or 3 training sessions, but no one has to, travel 8 hours and play 3,600 meters and then fly back another 8 hours, and 4 days later play at 5 degrees Celsius against another team. So that's just crazy. Even with someone like Carlos Ancelotti or Guardiola or Klopp, these are managers that build team over months, not over 2 or 3 afternoons, right?
Yeah.
So qualifiers force them into a different role. They become problem solvers, not architects anymore.
And I
Now
think,
we're
and I think part of that, part of that is, unlike, let's say, Europe, you also have to qualify for the Europa or the European Cup, right?
Mhm.
So South America, you don't have that problem. You play the Copa America, right?
Exactly.
Which is why you have a more lengthy period of time by which you must qualify for the World Cup. You don't have that qualification process as you do in Europe for the Continental Cup. And yeah, no, it's really long. And you're right. On like you said, one day you're playing at home in Brazil, and the next, 4 days later, you're going to La Paz, and you're 6,000 feet above sea level, and you can't breathe. So for sure, and I think that's a good segue actually to speaking about Brazil.
Mhm.
So even the most casual of soccer or football fans knows of the Brazilian national team, the famous yellow, blue, white jerseys, the flair, the history, all of that. And when Brazil looks like Brazil, it's more than just that flair, right? It's cohesion, preparation, and just players that fit into certain roles. So let me ask you this. So in terms of the Brazilian national team, what do you think Brazil needs to do to sharpen itself heading into the tournament? Having, as you mentioned, having lost a fair number of points through qualification. So how do you weigh the balance between like players who play Brazilian club football in the domestic league versus those in Europe, and how do you sort of bring those together? And in addition, as you mentioned, Carlo Ancelotti, a new coach. So how do you see that working out, and what suggestions do you have for the team?
The backbone is from Europe. I mean, all the players that play abroad are the structure of the team. If you look it from a more tactical angle now, and really ask what Brazil needs to sharpen heading into 2026, I honestly think that answer is structure, not talent, because talent has never been the issue here in Brazil. The real question is how the talent is organized on the pitch. When you look at the players who are in the conversation all the time, Vini Júnior, Rodrigo, Rafinha, Bruno Guimarães, Casemiro, Martinelli, Marquinhos. I mean, these guys operate at the highest tactical level in Europe every single week. Well, maybe not Vini anymore. He's having hard time in Real Madrid, but you get the point. What they bring to the team is positional discipline, comfort inside complex game models, something the coach values a lot. They're used to systems where any space matters, pressing matters, rest defense matters. So because of that, Europe players are naturally the tactical backbone of this team. They set the rhythm. They define how Brazil behaves without the ball. So, in many ways, this is the essence of how Brazil is building their strategy, right? So they're not only technical elite; they're tactically conditioned, and they are the structure of the team. So when Brazil look at the players from the domestic league, the logic today is a bit different from the past. I think that these players aren't brought to define how Brazil plays. They are selected when they are performing some specific role, or because of the trust of the coach. The goalkeeper that is being called in, Hugo Souza from Corinthians, is an example. He's a trusted man for the coach. He's not as good as Alisson, who is the starter, but he is a player of trust. When we compare players from abroad to the players uh, working in Brazil, that brings us to an important and sometimes uncomfortable discussion, which is Neymar. He's playing for Santos right now. Neymar is still a super special player. Technically, he is different. Very few players in the world can create, imbalance as he does, slow down the game, speed it up, decide matches in very small spaces. But the football today is about availability and continuity, right? So the injury story, limited match rhythm, amount of time left for the preparation of the World Cup, all of these matters. And in this sense, that makes very hard to see him as an automatic starter. Not because of talent, as I said, I think talent is not the issue here, but because of preparation. The time is short, and I think that the team right now needs reliability. At this stage, Brazil cannot afford to build around uncertainty, or is Neymar going to be well there? Neymar can still be extremely valuable as a situational difference a maker, as someone who can, change the rhythm of the game, as I said, as an option. But the team cannot depend on him anymore. And this is critical, especially for the group stage. Brazil is in a dangerous group. Someone says, well, it's okay. Haiti, Morocco, Scotland. Morocco, compact, tactical discipline. They were they played Croatia for the bronze medal last World Cup, right? Scotland, physical, and Haiti. They have nothing to lose. So in short, if Brazil arrive adjusting roles, depending on individual solutions, on Neymar or whatever, the margin disappear very quickly. But if Brazil arrives with a clear European-based core, fixed roles, Neymar used intelligently, not emotionally, then the quality gap shows for sure.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Ancelotti, big fan of his. So I think you guys will be okay.
Gustavo, really quickly, shifting outside of Brazil, which South American national teams have caught your eye so far? And which country is going to be the hardest place for any visiting federation to get a result? I think I know the answer to the last one, but curious of what you have to say.
Jake, if we look outside of Brazil for a moment, of course, a few South American teams have really stood out in this qualifying cycle. Well, not only the qualifying cycle, but right now the best team on the continent is without a doubt Argentina. Uh, it's hard for a Brazilian to say that, it really is, but they are currently the champions, and today they're the best team. Even worse, football wise, it's been a tough moment for me lately as a Brazilian to admit that Argentina are better than us. And as a Corinthians fan, admitting that Palmeiras are in a much better moment. Oh, my, let's say, football has just been seriously testing my emotional resilience. But anyway, Argentina is always, on top of the list. Uh, Ecuador. Ecuador comes to mind. They qualified in front of Brazil and Uruguay, two world champions. They've been very consistent, physical, organized, especially when they play in Quito, intense. Well, they have two very good players, not only two, but Gonzalo Plata, who plays for Flamengo, and now Ener Valencia, I think he's playing in Mexico and Pachuca, so very good players. Uruguay is also a strong team, always a strong team. Um, Aggression. They play at all times aiming at defending very well, um, all together, a very strong team with wonderful players: Arrascaeta, De La Cruz, Piquerez, Rocher, Emiliano Martinez, very strong core. Um, but talking about the most difficult place to play, to play the matches, I would go for Bolivia, La Paz for sure. Um, Although they are not in the conversation because of the quality, but because of the context. It's the toughest place for any visiting team. The altitude changes everything: timing, physical output, recovery, decision making. Brazil felt that, losing 1-0 for Bolivia. Um, so it's also difficult to play in Argentina, but enough of praising Argentina today. But La Paz is tough. La Paz is a tough place to play.
I figured it was going to be La Paz. I mean, we've all seen the videos and the images of Messi throwing up after playing there, and everyone on oxygen just because of the altitude. It's difficult. It actually reminds me of the NFL when they play in Denver.
Mhm.
They have all those oxygen tanks on the sidelines,
Yeah,
but La
crazy.
Paz is a little bit more extreme. So, Gustavo,
Quito as
Brazil's
well is
footprint.
very tough. Quito is also
Quito,
high.
yeah,
Mhm.
Quito as well. So Brazil's footprint is enormous. I mean, domestically and globally, as you had mentioned earlier, you have players all over the world. If Brazil arrives to the World Cup in 26 firing, what is that going to do for the local game, the youth pathways, and for the Brazilian and South American brands that are trying to build campaigns tied to the World Cup, including tours, academies, sponsorships, and even commercial travel?
Right. The World Cup is always an extraordinary moment in Brazil. You see, right? So the country really goes all in. Streets change, routines stop, people become obsessed with everything around the national team. So kids want to play more football if that is even possible. So, from a business perspective, that momentum really matters a lot. Uh, I think that it opens opportunities around all those things you said: academies, experiences, travel, sponsorship, and brands invest heavily because Brazil is a huge consumer market, not only domestically but globally, right? So structurally, the administration of clubs is still far from what we see in Europe, for instance, and they should explore that with the World Cup more intensely. Uh, if we compare South America, Brazil stands out amongst the countries. Compared to Europe, of course, the gap is big. Maybe Palmeiras, Flamengo are the closest to think of that level, but some others, Cruzeiro, Bahia, they are trying to organize themselves. But overall, governance is still a major issue here in Brazil. And the same applies for the federation. The Confederation of Football, Brazilian CBF, is a political institution often in crisis with recurring scandals and internal disputes. So yet none of that stops the World Cup from being a massive commercial opportunity in Brazil. So when Brazil are relevant, brands move, money moves, and the entire ecosystem reacts. It's messy, it's imperfect, but the scale and passion of Brazil make it impossible to ignore. I think that it's a great opportunity for the the economy and for the brands.
Of course, Gustavo. Very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you for that. So, uh, switching a little bit more to the mobility playbook back again. So, Gustavo, when clubs or federations are trying to moving their teams, their players, coaches, medical staff, everyone that support the teams across South America, what are the main trends, policies, or process changes that you think are helping things to move faster? And on the other hand, where do you see there a little bit of bottlenecks?
Right, Sergio. When we switch to the mobility playbook, as you said, I think that the biggest difference maker by far is planning. When clubs and federations plan early, everything moves faster. Visas, work authorizations, registrations, logistics, all starts to flow, right? The challenge is that in sports, more specifically in football, planning isn't always, that easy. Coaches get dismissed
Right.
overnight. Players need to be registered. Well, they arrived yesterday. They have a match on, Wednesday next week. So we need to do a process that take 30 days within 4. And everything happens in very little notice, right? So that's where having an experienced firm, immigration firm as partner really makes a difference. You still need to be fully compliant, but you will also need to understand that, very specific requirements, the local nuances of the country. One size fits all simply doesn't work in South America. Of course, in urgent situations, the speed comes from knowing the pathways. What can be done fast? What cannot be done? Where there's room for flexibility without creating risk. So, in terms of what can help things to move more smoothly, I would say better use of centralized processes and more realistic timelines being built into the decision making. Um, and bottlenecks still remain. I mean, short notice moves are still a bottleneck. Inconsistent documentation, last minute changes, especially when it involves technical staff. These are, pressure points. So, but despite of this challenge and issues, also the issues that some countries in the region have faced, I would say that the South America, especially Brazil, that I can talk more, remains a very stable and workable region from an immigration perspective. Processes are somehow and generally predictable. Um, with the right planning, of course, and local expertise, mobility can manage efficiently across most of the jurisdictions. So the equation is kind of simple. Where there's planning, things flow. Where there isn't, experience and fast, accurate guidance becomes essential for a smooth process.
Gustavo, so thank you so much for joining us. We are coming up on time here, so I do want to get to our lightning round of questions because this is a really fun opportunity for us to ask you a bunch of really quick questions.
Okay.
So, first question is going to be one South American team besides Brazil and Argentina that you think neutral fans should watch closely in 2026.
I would say Ecuador, as I said before. I think that they're playing very well. Very interesting team to watch.
One Brazilian player or South American player you believe is set up for a breakout World Cup, someone who is going to just come onto the stage like Jaime Rodriguez did several years ago.
I would go for a Brazilian one, maybe Rafinha. Rafinha, I'm anxious to see him playing as well as he's doing in Barcelona. I think that it might be a good opportunity and chance for him.
Best atmosphere in South America for an away day.
Corinthians Stadium. It's a great atmosphere. 90 minutes of pressure, noise, emotion, no silence, no breaks. We say Corinthians is not a team that has fans; it's a fan base that has a team. So, with that sentence, you can bet how it is to watch. Next time in Brazil, Rick, please do not go to Maracanã. Go to the Corinthians Stadium.
Last one, Gustavo. One mobility, immigration, or travel change you would like to see that would make football movement across South America easier, especially for clubs and youth teams.
Maybe a regional sports mobility framework, faster, more standardized short term processes, especially for the youth teams with clear rules and full compliance.
And to finish off the episode, something we ask every guest, I think with you, not to say you're biased, of course, but we always ask this is what we're playing for, this replica right here. And we ask our guests who they think will win and who they want to win. I think who we want to win, we can ignore that, obviously, based on your background. We know who you want to win. But putting on your objective hat, who do you think is taking home the real version of this in a short few months?
Rick, that's a tough one because heart comes first, and I say Brazil can win depending on how
Sure.
they organize themselves. They have a very good coach, world-class coach. If they have the proper time to, organize themselves in terms of structure, I think that Brazil has great chances to win. Fingers crossed. I'm of course supporting and hoping that we are going to get to the finals and win it. But again, talking seriously, still Argentina is very strong, and I have Holland. Maybe Holland is my
Second person to say Holland. Second
yeah.
person to say Holland.
Not only because of I like their football, but also because of Memphis Depay. Memphis is playing there, and in Corinthians as well. So bias again.
Well, listen, thanks very much for joining us, Gustavo. It was a very, very interesting conversation. Love your perspective on a lot of these things. Heading down to South America, we really appreciate it. For our viewers and listeners, stay along with the conversation. Hashtag Fragomen FC, and we will see you all again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gustavo.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.